We are. Hello, everybody. This is Preston Poulter. I'm here with Thomas and Tony.
Hi.
And Zombie, strangely enough, is actually a zombie this evening because he walked away from the keyboard.
I think. I'm not sure what happened, but he's not there right now.
Hope he comes back soon because he loves my scripts.
I know.
Pretty good.
Yeah. What did he just? Oh yeah. Now, so tell us. Last time, did you, Thomas? Which I learned is not your actual name, but whatever. Close enough.
Whoa.
Did you get a chance to listen to the other show that we did
last
week?
I didn't listen to last week's show yet. Just so much stuff piled up. I've read the comic before though already, like the beginning pages.
All right. Fair enough. Let's see.
I mean, I assume that's what you read was the script version of those beginning pages.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was kids in school adventure.
Kids in school.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tony. Pitch it to us.
Let me pull up the overview right now.
Okay.
It's in a separate file from. Set in the year 2091, the Yesterday Kids focuses on a group of teenagers who aspire to become professional raiders, scavengers, and explorers of areas destroyed after World War III. And there's some more details in that I forgot to mention. One is that it's 50 years after World War III, which is why I describe it as not Mad Max. I think I realize it's closer to something like Tom Sawyer. I mean, I say that because I read Tom Sawyer just recently, like a month ago. And so it's not like everybody's killing each other all the time out in the wastelands. Like civilization has rebuilt itself in other areas. Oh, I did
calm down and stuff.
Yeah, it's calmed down. There's space stations. Main character.
We had Armageddon. It wasn't so bad.
Yeah, well, you think about like how quickly some countries recover from, say World War II, like how
being nuked and stuff.
And being nuked, like Japan, that's the thing. And it's like it's not gonna like go fall out overnight, So like one detail is that Shane's older brother is an asteroid miner, not in the asteroid belt. So like hyperspace technology isn't there, but I'm trying to ride the line between, how advanced do I want to make, humanity? Is there like there's like a gray area between, utopian and or like post-apocalyptic. Just trying to find that sweet spot.
It's not Star Trek yet.
Right. It's not Star Trek yet. And there's like that. It's in an area where, if like World War IV happens, we're not going to come back. That kind of idea, I guess.
Okay.
So there's risk. I know that Preston sort of chided me on that last time. In this assortment, like Preston, I liked your criticism because it made me realize that the second chapter of this, it really drags. It's basically a strictly build up to chapter 3, and I don't think that's going to keep the reader's retention if they're not completely invested in these characters.
Yeah, finding space to like punch up in between things. Like if a panel serves too much of a purpose, it's like, I want to put a joke here, but then it's gonna interrupt this really important thing. It's hard to find the right place to punch up sometimes. But I mean, if you notice like an entire chapter drags, you can usually go through it and be like, okay, this part they're going to at least say something differently, so it's weirder or funnier, instead of just being like, well, it's got to get to the point of the next chapter. Sometimes that means like throwing it away, but like salvaging at least half of it and rewriting it in a different. Not a different approach so much. It's not like try starting at the ending and go back to the beginning, but it's more like.
I mean, the beauty of that, of just starting at the ending and saying, okay, I'm only going to go to the parts that are salient, is it now provides you, granted, it's somewhat of a lame mechanism, but it still kind of provides you with a way to go, okay, we now have, presumably the ending is going to be
we see the stakes
part of it. Yeah, we see the stakes.
We see
And
the stakes up front. It really depends. It depends
Yeah.
on how well it works or how well you want. I mean, if it's it's ultimately how the writer wants to do it. But
Well, sure, but it also suggests that you're only going to go and tell backstory that's relevant to the reader to understand the end,
yeah,
and that's not a bad outlook, really. You know, I
as
mean, to
long as you
me,
don't try to abuse it too much, because there's the
right,
5 days ago, 2 days later, 8 weeks later,
sure,
3 hours
yeah,
ago. You want to avoid
right.
that.
Well, yes, but I'm still saying that whenever you're on the most powerful tool on the keyboard for the writer is delete.
Yeah,
So if you're ever in a scene and the scene just drags,
yeah,
you got to ask yourself, why is this scene here? What purpose is it serving?
yeah. The
And if
purpose. That's what you're looking for, is the
yeah,
purpose.
Right.
and if it's just, well, it's here to set up the next, just cut it.
Yeah,
If
you're always looking to tell the most interesting and important part of the characters' lives, and it's like, if
right,
you're not doing that, you want to cut it. But there is always a way to find some purpose in every scene sometimes. So
right.
that can be tricky to not sort of let yourself get hung up on. Well, what if this serves too much purpose? And sometimes that stuff can just be condensed
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
other scenes or
exactly.
panels, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. I mean, like so much can be established in like one line of dialogue. You know, car
Yes.
pulls up, somebody got out. How did the bank heist go? Well, the cop shot at it. You know, like, okay, so like if the bank heist ended up being a boring scene, I don't know how, but just say it did. Well, you can still cover it in a few lines of dialogue. And it's better to have a couple of expository lines than just a whole dead scene that drags on for a few pages.
That
I
can
mean,
be a good setup too, by the way, is how'd the bank heist go? And then the next page could be like a few hours earlier,
Exactly.
because now
yeah.
you're grabbing the reader's attention, and then you're gonna show them, the thing that grabbed their attention.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's see. Well, zombie seems to be
Zombie.
on. Yeah, zombie seems to be a zombie for whatever reason. So, all right. Well, we have two people presenting pages this evening, and zombies not one of them. So I guess
It's you and
Guinevere
Tony.
won. Yeah, it's me and Tony.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
right.
have my version of Guinevere and the Divinity Factory, issue 3, which I'm thinking is going to be pretty close to the final version. I
Mhm.
think I'm about ready to submit it to the editor and get this one going. And then we got Tony, who is all right. So I'm glad that my feedback last time helped you,
Mhm.
but what you're saying is the pages we're about to read are kind of draggy.
Well, these ones I don't really plan on changing. I think that the
Okay.
first chapter is pretty much locked in, if unless I get some like particularly scathing criticism tonight.
Okay.
Um, but
I'll try not to have it be too scathing.
yeah, what's interesting about this first chapter is that it was initially written to be a prologue to the comic proper. So, like after this chapter, what it would have done was it would have flashed forward like 3 years later to them in high school. And I realized, well, there's some stuff in there that I could probably fill in the blanks, some pretty important stuff, you know. So I don't know. It definitely ended up taking a different direction from what I had initially planned.
Well, good, and that's really the whole beautiful thing about feedback is,
Yeah.
Mhm.
even if you're presenting to people that you think are not, maybe the sharpest, just the work of doing it, you know, it improves it. So,
Yeah.
from my experience, anyway. Okay, so
Oh, we're
I
doing
got.
mine first.
Oh,
Are
did
we?
you want to do mine first? Hold
Oh,
on, I just want to.
I mean, I can go either way. We can do a coin flip or something.
Well, just be decisive. We
Literal
can
coin flip.
decide. Do you want? Hold on, Thomas. You want to hear mine first? You want to hear his first?
Because we've covered yours before.
We
So
have.
my way of thinking is, if we get yours out of the way first, then we can end on the Yesterday Kids as like the final thing.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Then I will stop sharing it. And I will share mine. Okay.
I don't have the script, but I mean, if you have it on the screen,
I did put it on Discord.
I have yours, but I mean, I don't have the Yesterday Kids one.
That
That's
is
up near the
also
top.
on Discord.
Is it further
It's a
up?
little further,
Near the top, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait, Yesterday Kids Chapter 1?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, that is it then. Okay.
That is it. All right. So hold on. Now
So it's not the Chapter 2 that you were talking about earlier?
No, it's
Okay.
just like the criticism from last time. It helped me influence, or like help me get a fresher perspective on what I'm going to do going forward.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we starting from? Guinevere 3.
Page 12.
All
We're
right.
gonna start on page 12, which is a beautiful 2-page spread. So hold on. Let me share that here with the audience.
Page 10, 11, 12.
Now keep in mind we're doing comic page 12, not
the
PDF page.
Yeah, the PDF is like page 19.
Right, probably.
Yeah.
Yes, page 18, yeah. So here we are. We got page 12, panel 10. All right, so our main characters are going. I'll go ahead and voice Eric. He doesn't have a ton of lines. We got Guinevere. We got Viviax.
I'm usually Guinevere, so I will be reprising my role as Guinevere.
Okay. All right, we got a narrator. Tony, why don't you be the narrator until Zombie gets
okay.
here? So, all right. So, Tony, you're going to be the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
And, all right, you know what? Well, look, I'll be the narrator.
Okay.
Because we got Viviax. There's a lot of stuff going on here. So, and I want Viviax and Guinevere to be kind of distinct. So, somebody's got to be the narrator. I'll go ahead and be the narrator on this one.
Yeah.
And, let's see. Do we have anybody else? No, we got anybody else. Okay. So here we go. Page 12. So this is a 2-page spread. So panel 1 is the centerfold of the spread. Viviax stands behind Guinevere and leans in to speak to her with a seductive smile. Her left arm wraps around Guinevere's waist as her right hand moves alongside her stomach towards her breasts. Her wings curl around the pair loosely in a mimic of an embrace. Here, I'm gonna magnify this a little bit. Let's see, maybe go to 125. Oops. And put that away. All right, maybe 125 is a little bit too much. Here's 100. Okay, there we go. That's still better. Okay.
That is pretty good.
Yeah. As with the previous page, these figures are borderlessly flowing into the other panels, and the origin of all the dialogue being spoken between the two of them, between them in each of the panels. Panel 2 is in the top left. Guinevere looks down at her biker boyfriend, who flashes a bottle of pills to her in his right hand. Let her note the dialogue bubbles from this panel should guide the reader into panel 3.
Oh, that's me?
Yeah,
I must say, I feel right at home in a place like this. There is nothing more endearingly human than a woman selling her body.
Look, I needed the money and sold what my mama gave me.
I needed the money. Don't hear that too often in my line of work.
What's the difference? It's not who I am anymore.
Panel 3, top center. Stripper Guinevere looks in to see who is watching as she passes a bottle of pills to another stripper for cash in a backstage dressing room.
Is that so? Learned to toss a few magic spells, and now you're no longer the moral degenerate who sold her body or dealt amphetamines for her dealer boyfriend.
I've changed.
Heard that one before, too. Tell me, do you still fear men?
I make them fear me.
Something you first tried to do when you were, 12?
I don't want to talk about that.
Panel 4, top right. A 12-year-old Guinevere walks along a sidewalk in Green Rural small town Oklahoma in the 1980s. She eyes a white cargo van that has pulled up alongside her. A nondescript young white man with dark hair leans out the passenger window to talk to her.
Then that's exactly what we should look at next. The horrible things men did to a sweet and innocent young girl out looking for her little lost puppy.
Panel 5, left center. 12-year-old Guinevere incredulously looks inside the dark interior of the cargo van as another nondescript young white man with blonde hair stands outside with the door open. The dark-haired man from panel 3 looks down at Guinevere from the passenger window with a menacing smile.
You knew better than to get into that van.
But my puppy was lost, and I couldn't bear to think of any harm coming to it. I knew it was wrong, but the logic of looking for it in a car was undeniable.
Panel 5, right center. Inside the back of the cargo van, the two men sit in bucket seats arguing. Young Guinevere is terrified, but does her best to seem menacing.
Who's the dark-haired man?
Dark-haired man. I guess that'll be me. I get her first. I found her.
My father's a cop. He'll be looking for me.
A desperate lie told in a failed effort to stop the unspeakable.
Panel 7, lower left. Two male hands wield a fallen tree limb to club the young Guinevere over the head.
And after they had taken their turns on you, it was time to dispose of the evidence.
Panel 8, two men walk away from a wooded creek and into the light of the setting sun. Young Guinevere floats face down in the water, her arms in a weightless pose of a floating corpse.
I played possum and it worked. They thought they had knocked me out. They left me to drown in the creek.
Panel 9, bottom center. Young Guinevere pleads with her parents, who are largely off panel and obscured in shadow.
So you came home lucky to have escaped with your life to discover your parents discounted the ordeal.
They had caught me lying the previous week. I had a reputation for fanciful tales. I didn't have any proof of what happened.
Panel 10, young Guinevere walks among a crowd of men, looking at their nondescript faces suspiciously.
And you could never bring yourself to ever truly trust men after that.
I was so scared at the time, it was hard to remember exactly what their faces looked like. I couldn't be certain. I started to think that any man could be one of them.
And panel 13 is the two-page thread with panel 12. Going on to 14. Panel 1, dead center. A bust view of the pair shows Viviac still behind Guinevere. Her demonic hands now cup Guinevere's breast as she kisses her neck. Guinevere is uncertain and begins to fade as she loses herself in the sensation. The layout of the main panel versus the inset panels is the same as the prior page. Panel 2, top left. The bottle of white pill spills across the rest of the page. White pill should appear on top of the other panels of this page. Panel 3, top center. A male bonobo offers a banana to a female of the species sitting on a log who considers his offer.
The exchange of resources for sexual access remains quite simple and uncomplicated in your less reason-based evolutionary forerunners.
Panel 4, top right. The biker dude smiles down at his Harley-Davidson motorcycle as stripper Guinevere, dressed a bit like Daisy Duke, looks on, starstruck.
After your kind mastered masonry and the construction of cities, that simple transaction became more complicated. Instead, the showing of prestige items became a part of the mating ritual.
Panel 5, bottom left. Stripper Guinevere leans forward on all fours as she is taken from behind by the burly biker on a motel mattress. The scene should be shrouded in the dark shadow save for her face.
Of course, developments in pharmacology allowed for the eviction of reason and returned simplicity to the equation.
I didn't like those pills, but they allowed me to feel free of the fear.
That horrible gnawing anxiety that your abductors were going to come back to finish the job was always at the back of your mind.
Panel 6, bottom center. Stripper Guinevere dances on the side stage. Her biker boyfriend, Anna, the club manager, dressed in a suit and tie. A mage named Magnus, who wears a black leather jacket, black cowboy hat, silver reflective glasses, stands talking to them in conversation. He points to Guinevere as he speaks. And I'll say, I'll take this one. How much for her company for an evening? And the club owner's like, you have excellent taste. She's the hardest working girl in the club. And then the biker boyfriend's like, $200 for sex, $500 for her to spend the night. Panel 7, bottom right, two hands. Magnus holds, right hand extends out from his black leather jacket to hold out 5 fanned $100 bills.
He didn't try to talk him down. The first sign was that he was really into you.
Page 15, panels 4. Panel 1. Magnus brings Guinevere, dressed in a slutty dress, to his inner sanctum, which has a fair amount of memorabilia dedicated to Stevie Ray Vaughan, including a guitar and a hat. The sanctum also contains a number of Native American fetishes, crystals, and dream catchers. In the middle of the room is a sand pit, which contains a sand circle, featuring the golden spiral with a stripper pole at its center.
I see you really went all out with the interior decorating.
Take off your clothes and dance on the pole.
I knew nothing about magic. I was worried he was a creeper going to kill me. Instead, I was reborn.
Magnus stands with his arms spread wide. Magical energy begins to arc between the wands he holds in his clenched fist. Stripper Guinevere clutches the pole as she looks on in amazement.
What the hell?
Keep dancing.
Your kind is so simple. You learn how to shape reality, and your main purpose remains to indulge your baser instincts.
Even simple folk learn that they can bend reality to their will with enough feeling. Sex magic can be beautiful, a powerful ritual.
Stripper Guinevere looks up towards the man as he kneels, or looks up towards the man as she kneels before him with no sense of shame. Her complexion is pockmarked as the drugs have begun to attack her body. The man's hands glow with blue magic as he directs magical energy. Her memories, taken from 12 to 13, show as blue shadows behind her, but clearly emanating from her mind.
I gotta be with you, baby, to bend reality itself. Just another pickup line if you ask me.
But when the time came, he hesitated. Something about me caused him to want to know more.
Stripper Guinevere, wearing a too big denim shirt and a man's blue jeans that he loaned her, sits in a diner eating soup. Magnus sits across from her.
You learned a powerful lesson that day. No man is so powerful that he cannot be controlled through guilt by a woman in need.
It's deeper than that. Casually using women to suit your own ends leaves a scar. Eventually, you don't like what you've become, as he explained it to me at the time.
I'm not redeeming you, I'm redeeming me. Page 16, panels 5. Panel 1, Viviax and Guinevere are shown in bust relief as the succubus whispers her venomous words softly into Guinevere's ear, but Guinevere is waking up and finding her resolve.
And do tell me all about how the gallant white knight led you away from your life of sin. What trite nonsense! I am here to offer you a better way, not out of pity for the abuse you've suffered, but out of rage toward the entire male gender. My kind specifically preys on their male weakness. We are the true righters of wrongs. We have been evening the score since time immemorial. Join me and never live in fear of a mortal man for the rest of time.
There are good men in the world. Daddy, the mage who saved me, Francis Gatz. I have mind magic now, so I'm a better judge of character.
A close-in show the pair from shoulders and above. Viviac, still standing behind Guinevere, points over her right shoulder off in the distance as she whispers into her ear.
They're still out there, the two who left you for dead. I can show you where they are. We can exact revenge together. Have some quality girl time.
Guinevere, resolved, steps away from a shocked Viviac as she grabs Viviac by the throat and pushes her back.
If you're quite done, I want to get back to saving Valentina. I'm not going to let you possess me, so unless there's some other bargain you want to make for the stuff I need to know, then I suggest you take me back.
Disappointed, Viviac nervously turns her pouty face to look down as she flicks the talon of her left index. With the thumb for the same.
Well, this is awkward.
Panel 5. The scene returns to the stairwell with Viviac seated upon a skull behind her stand offering advice. She continues to fiddle with the talon on her left hand as she dismisses Guinevere with the fingers of her right. Guinevere stands by the door, returning to the hospital.
All right, well, off you go.
Page 17, panels 5. Viviac and Guinevere stand before an open entrance that leads back to Max Faber's empty office from issue 2.
This portal doesn't lead to the hospital. That's Pentex.
And all the answers you want about Valentina, Dr. Matheson, and the nature of the research being conducted by Pentex Pharmaceuticals can be found there.
Guinevere walks through the portal. Panel 3. Guinevere now stands in Max's office and looks at the door with surprise as Eric opens it. His suit shows numerous bloodstains. Panel 4. Guinevere, the green ambient glowing around her neck, looks nervously over her shoulder to Viviac, who taunts her from her portal opening in the wall behind. Viviac holds an upside-down, hollowed-out skull in her right hand that she uses as a bowl for which she scoops out worms with human faces to consume like popcorn.
That guy's named Eric. He can tell you everything you need to know. And don't worry, he can't see me. Only your amulet allows for that.
Panel 5, side view. Eric approaches Guinevere with a sinister smile as he reflexively takes a step back from him. Oh, I'm Eric. Pardon the interruption. I am with Human Resources. You wouldn't happen to be Mr. Faber's new hire, Gwyn Mordredus, would you?
Yes, I think so. I guess. Depends on what you need her for.
Panel 1, this is a splash page, the Ace of Swords. This page will serve as a reinterpretation of the tarot card Ace of Swords. The background layout of the card is to be replaced with Eric's suit jacket, shirt, and tie. All of these have flecks of blood from his previous dirty work. His left hand is not in the frame, but his right hand reaches into the panel from with his chest just below his ribcage. A long claw extends from the index finger of his hand upward towards his throat. The bottom half of his face is visible as the top right of the page as he smiles with sinister intent and says, "Oh, I just have a few questions that need answering." Page 19, panel 1. Guinevere fires off her magic as she weaves an enchantment spell on Eric.
Shame on you. That how you talk to a pretty girl? You'll get way farther with honey than vinegar, if you know what I mean.
Panel 2. Eric steps back, confused. His right hand caresses his chin as venom drips from the long index talon. What a strange sensation. I must say, I've never experienced anything like this before. Panel 3. Guinevere is also confused as to the results for her magic. Viviax, eating her souls, finds the whole thing hilarious.
I never thought of using magic to sexually manipulate an android. This ought to be interesting.
An android?
Did I forget to mention that? I thought the huge murderous claws would have given that bit away. Oh well, intellect was never your strong suit. If you had signed the contract, I would have told you all that, or more. But since you didn't...
The dimensional doorway slams shut.
Tools, bitch!
So, since Viviax is now left, why don't you take over Eric's lines and I'll just do the narration.
Okay.
Page 20, panel 1. Eric stands mystified as Guinevere steps discreetly towards the door.
It was such a peculiar sensation, a feeling of terrible emptiness, one that could only be fulfilled by the possession of you. Is this what sexuality feels like?
Panel 2. Eric shoves her against the wall by the doorframe. He leans into her and leers over her as she turns her face away.
Where are you going? You have aroused these feelings in me. I cannot allow you out of my sight.
Oh, Jesus. I think I've used my magic to create a horny robot.
Guinevere's magic flares as she uses it to enhance her strength, which causes her muscles to grow and ripple.
Good thing I know enough life magic to augment myself. Time for Plan B.
Panel 4. Guinevere throws a powerful uppercut to Eric's midsection, which lifts him clean off the ground.
Gah.
Smack. Page 21, panels 4. Guinevere tears off running down the corridor. Go ahead.
I gotta use the element of surprise to make my escape.
Panel 2, large panel, Dutch angle. Eric launches himself down the corridor and tackles her.
Gah.
Panel 3, Guinevere.
I know that's pretty flat, but still.
It was great.
Oh, okay.
Guinevere knocked to the ground with Eric on top of her, turns around to face him, and knocks him in the face with her elbow.
Get away from me.
Panel 4. Having knocked him away, she stands to resume her flight. However, Eric extends a poison claw from his index finger and pokes her in the calf.
Let me go.
No, I don't know who you are, but you belong to me now.
Panel 5. Eric stands next to the confused Guinevere as he clutches her hand.
No, leave me alone. I feel so confused.
That makes two of us, dear, but I'm sure we'll sort it out together.
Page 22, panels 1. This splash page shall borrow from the Four of Swords. Eric lays on a high-tech robotic panel which bathes him in light. He steeples his fingers and wears a relaxed smile upon his face. On the base of the table is a high-tech light which, like the wall columns below, vaguely forms the shape of a sword. The back wall has a similar sci-fi aesthetic to Eric's office detail earlier. The columns form along left, center, and right as part of the wall. High-tech lights and insignias form sword-like arrows that point downward on the columns. Guinevere stands in the middle of the frame, bathing him in pleasant blue magical energy. She wears a metal collar around her neck, which chains her to the center columns. Similar metal bracelets chain both her hands to the far columns, but leave her enough room to move.
I think I rather like this emotion. I feel so powerful and confident. Self-assured. What's it called?
Arrogance.
Seems to suit me. Never before did I realize how heavy the burden I carry for you creatures is.
What did we ever do to bring that on?
All right, so that's 10 pages there.
A lot changed since the last time. I remember reading this a few weeks ago. It's very different.
Yeah. So there we are. We got we got the 10 pages, and yeah, I've look, I take feedback. I'm always trying to make stuff better to keep you guys entertained.
I was almost going to say almost too much change because, I mean, I thought it was going pretty good on the last thing, and now it's like almost feels like a giant reshuffling. But it is still, essentially the same story. There's like the 2 extra pages, that double splash page that has a lot more though than I was even expecting, because it's like this weird, tragic kind of backstory of her being abused as a kid and stuff, and which does fit a lot more for the. When it comes to strippers, tends to be a true stereotype. It's like they're getting into stripping and drugs and porn and all that because usually of some kind of abuse as a child, young teen, something like that.
And they see Superman coming out of a revolving door. Pimp says, "Damn, that is one bad outfit."
Yeah, that's what's missing from this. Zombie says, "I'm here now in the private chat," but does that mean he's here to be
I'm here.
invited?
Oh, here you are. Hello.
Oh, you're back?
Howdy.
Okay.
Great. So I made some changes to Guinevere. Yeah. I don't know how much you heard of that.
Some of it. I heard the last part. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty dramatic
You
changes.
missed like the early part because it goes into this whole thing where like she's like at 12, she's kidnapped by some neighborhood creeps and stuff. And
Yeah, that was in it last week. Yeah.
That was in last week's. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that's that's a pretty big change from what I remember, and that adds a lot more to her character of and it's an interesting detail because it potentially adds a ton more, and it kind of informs on the other parts of her past too. I guess not to jumpstart to criticism, but my question would be then, like, how much of that informs the rest of her character throughout the entire rest of the story too. We can save that for later.
All right. Tony?
Let's see. Oh yeah, I appreciated changing the popcorn to human heads. That really, yeah, it adds a lot more to her personality on top of being more morbid. There's a part. Let me try and find it where it was something that I liked. So,
snacking on souls does seem certainly more fittingly morbid for a demon succubus lady, that kind of thing.
Also, yeah, the part where she says, or Gwen, or what's it? Yeah, Gwen is confused by the android, and Viviax just says, "Oh, you should have read the contract." And I think that that alleviates the confusion that I had in the previous stream. So, yeah, I like it. And I also liked how you added links to Wikipedia for reference for the artists. I don't see that a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if I was the artist for this, then I would appreciate giving like the extra mile, I guess.
Well, I don't. I try to keep it to as few revisions as possible, and it's. I found it's really difficult when, particularly if I have a specific vision in my mind, and then they'll bring me a sketch. I'm like, no, that's not it. And you don't know how many times I go, no, that's not it. So I try and give them as many reps.
Yeah, it's easy to almost like disappear into revisions, just inverting, like overlapping a million dimensions, and I'm time traveling now. Just freaking yourself out with how accurate and descriptive you're trying to be for how you want a panel to look and that kind of thing.
And did that get changed from a ranged attack to take her down to a hand-to-hand attack? Did I see?
Yeah, just like you wanted. There you go. He's
No, I just I think that works better, and it would look better on the panel too. I think with the wrestling and the close combat.
Right.
But I think that's a good idea, and not just because it was my suggestion. I think it actually does work better.
How she put the whammy on him, and he wants to jump her, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not sure if there's anything else because we've gone over the script. So as far as like, there's no story criticisms because we kind of know the story. We know the story by heart,
Yeah.
That was one thing about like her being abused as a kid is I don't know how much that's going to have to do with the entire rest of the story, but I mean I know it does fit with like her her later younger years where she's getting into the stripping and drugs and stuff.
It's a different style too. I mean, it's not the Batman, parents were killed, therefore becomes criminal, superhero thing. It's more, it's a bit more diverse and varied than that, where it's just explaining her past.
It's an unsolved tragedy too, which in a way is always going to be tragic too.
Yeah, she stays broken from it, that's for sure, until the wizard intervenes. The magician.
And I don't want to spoil, but it's like I don't know if the two guys who kidnapped her are going to have like some appearance, they're going to show up, and that's going to pay off, or if that's just something that Viviax is trying to like taunt her or bargain with in a way. So I won't say, go ahead and spoil everything. I'm saying that is a question that I have when I read this.
Fair.
I definitely enjoy it. It's not even my particular favorite kind of comical story, but I enjoy this one. And it's interesting that it came out of the Vampire the Masquerade set of games.
Oh yeah, I got a sense of that too. There's because a lot of the teasing, taunting stuff. It kind of reminds me, in a way, it was reminding me a little bit of Bloodlines with the interactions and the dialogue, the back and forth. I really like Bloodlines. It's a really good game, and this it kind of makes me think of this in a way. A succubus is always going to make me think of Malkavians somewhat too.
I just think it demonstrates that tension and action doesn't actually have to be literal, simplistic action. It can actually come through the dialogue and the emotional tension, which it certainly does in this comic, this particular one. So I just think that's good. But then, I mean, I don't know. I'm more contrarian. I don't like really simplistic comics. I don't think I ever did, even as a child. So.
Yeah, I like the idea of a succubus showing up and trying to taunt somebody, but then also maybe they get something back on the succubus, and it's like, well, what do you think about that? She's like, oh shit, I got faced, but
Exactly.
but yeah, it's there's a lot of I was trying to think of a specific thing as far as the character dealios, but the weird supernatural, it's kind of I like the idea of that setting and the sort of the general feeling, the overall feeling of like a bizarre situation where it's like this girl, she knows magic, and then there's succubuses getting involved, and this guy's an android and she accidentally seduces him with magic, and just these sort of interlocking situations that are really kind of bizarre and not really not at all typical in any comic. You really don't see a lot of comics like this. You might see like Alan Moore might be like, oh, you see, I once saw a snake, it's on TV, whatever. But I'm saying like the idea of magic as that sort of reality bending, that's something I think is interesting, even though it's like not my kind of comic. It's like here is a comic that's really giving more thought about how magic would work or what it would do than a lot of comics that are just like, then they shoot laser beams out of their hands, that kind of thing. So
I think we're a pretty good test, actually, Thomas and I, because it's clearly not our favorite kind of comic, either of us. So it's engaging both of us. Yeah. So it's obviously working. It's not like, oh my God, I played Vampire the Masquerade for 8 years. I know everything about it. I've still got my big floppy white shirt. Oh my God. So it's not like that. So that's how you get a new audience, is by winning them over, not just sort of like so many of those suggested scripts, and especially, for example, like the CG type mutations that don't make it out of the lab. They're all like, oh, it's basically Gundam fan fiction. Right. And I'm like, or, it's a thinly disguised plagiarism of Guyver or whatever. And I'm thinking,
or Captain America.
Oh yeah, there are 100 different Captain Americas or GI Joe, and you just think, well, why fucking bother then? Really, I don't particularly like Captain America, apart from a few classic runs. So why the hell am I going to buy an off-brand version of something I wouldn't buy the on-brand version of?
Or even GI Joe. Like I mean, and I understand people liking GI Joe, but it's like,
sure,
if you're just going to have they're GI Joe, but he can shoot lasers out of his eyes or whatever. It's like,
but they're still publishing GI Joe. That's the thing.
Exactly. Like, who needs it? And even if they weren't, or even if you hate the current run of GI Joe, there's so many of the old ones that just going back to it, you have like 20 years, maybe more, of GI Joe comics that you would like that you could reread or something. And like, here's the one take I really like on it. Something that really gives it a twist, of course, is if it was GI Joe, but it was rabbits. Something like that is funny and bizarre enough to sort of make me go, oh, okay, I want to see that, because it's this bizarre, different twist on it without just being it's GI Joe. Or
no one would do that, though. I mean, who
launchers too?
Who would make cartoon rabbits the focus of their comic books? No one would do that. Exactly. That's just nuts.
What's the chances of it? But I just wanted to like sort of name drop Tim Lim as being an example of sort of taking an idea that's been done and putting that twist onto it that you can say, this reminds me of something, like it reminds me of Apocalypse Meow or something, but it's still, again, different enough that, because Apocalypse Meow wasn't actual rabbits, it was people. They were just being drawn as rabbits in Vietnam. But this is like its own original bizarre adventures with plots, and it's the.
But rather than Gail Simone doing a lazy copy of the writer's stream and just imitating Preston,
lazy
imitation being the sincerest form of plagiarism. The thing that people should copy about Preston Poulter is White Lily and Guinevere in the Divinity Factory. Whatever the origins of each one. Are really different and fresh, whether you particularly like the subject matter or not.
Yes, some fresh twist on that.
Professionally produced and fresh. Now, if he spends the rest of his life doing female lead books with kind of, sort of homoerotic female overtones in them, or lesbian kisses, then he's played out. But I doubt that he will. And I think anybody else listening to this as a writer or rewatching it in the future, just try and be fresh. Like,
even if you don't like any of the Herring or Preston stuff too, is that just think about it in that way, is that just trying to do something that, more fresh, original, something like that.
When Doctor Who first went super woke, it was woke from 2005, but then after 2010, Doctor Who just really took a turn for the left, and the trans positive, all of that crap. And it really outraged a lot of people, me included, and a whole wave of us did our own comics and animations and everything as basically a political statement against what Doctor Who had become, and to show that you could do a non-denominational Doctor Who of some kind, right? So, again, that played itself out within a year. If you're still doing that now, you're tiresome and you're boring. And all of these CG and CG-adjacent books, put aside the bad quality art, but they hold themselves out as being fresh, hot, and all of this. It's all so derivative. It's really derivative, and I don't think it's good. Now, the Dragon Guard guy, I've forgotten his name, he's doing a Masters of the Universe 80s cartoon, PG-ish, very, very kid-friendly without going out of his way to be patronising book. Beautifully drawn, in my opinion, for what it is. See, to me, even though you could say that's very derivative, he's done it fresh, and the way he's done it fresh is by staying very true to the original, but with a sense of fun. Now, see, to me, Jawbreakers fails because it's just weird-looking people in clothes, and it just doesn't.
The designs are generic, but like their characters are even more. They have no character.
I don't know
if you straws
that.
Straw guns too, yeah.
Yeah, that the Richard C. Meyer announced a new project today. Pandemic, and I was listening to the pitch on it, and it was a story. It was like a woman who, is just an average, ordinary waitress or whatever. Not a superhero, gets accidentally, she accidentally overhears a conversation by the Illuminati about, you know, how they're going to use this virus to, you know, like affect world events. But then she gets discovered. Now she's on the run. I'm like, holy shit, that's a real story. How did Richard end up with that?
Well, he clearly didn't, did he?
I don't know, but
I'm sure the execution. That's the thing, is that it's never really so much the pitch, though. It's the execution, where it's like she has the power to lift a car. How can she do that? Because she just does.
Also, Iron Sights was pretty grounded in reality.
Yeah, there's that. And that didn't even barely have a plot. It's like they're selling jeans, and now they're being shot at, and so they jump through a window. That's the actual plot.
Right.
And I mean, you can say this about non-CG as well, and we should. I mean, the George Alexopoulos guy that people blow hot and cold on. I don't particularly care for his art. That's irrelevant. The story of the Mary Sue comic I find completely unengaging as well, because it just seems like little random, sporadic patches of plot with connective tissue.
Comics, but I don't know anything about Mary Sue, so I can't say that it's bad for myself. But I mean,
now you compare that to the Napalm Brothers. Now, see, the Napalm Brothers, that comic just pounds it out and races through to the end, whether you like it or not. But that is fresh. That had no fat on it at all. That just bang, 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 bang through to the end.
That
one such distinctive artwork.
That one I wasn't even too interested in looking at, though, but I don't know anything about it either. And it's like, it's possible something could grab my interest, but I just, I haven't looked, and I haven't been like, I don't know, I don't care.
I tell you, one of the secrets of success for that comic is it's a 22-minute episode that isn't pretending to be a feature film. And all of the CG projects suffer from this.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of them trying to be like 100 pages.
Stretching it to breaking point and beyond. Whereas Napalm Brothers, bang, 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 done. So you don't have to die wondering what it's about. You read it, you like it or you don't, but the delivery is excellent. The art is very distinctive, so you put your money down, you take your chance. And not even a suggestion of like, yeah, I've got like another 800 pages to get, because if you say that kind of stuff and what you're doing is not fantastic.
Yeah, my grand epic and that kind of shit.
Yeah. That's like our dearly departed brother from your Discord with his fantasy world. Not the one that he tries to live in day to day. I mean the one that he's apparently constructed.
You mean the guy who got pink named? Not my actual brother, but the pink named guy.
Correct. He tried to develop this fantasy world, and then, I've got all these pages of it. And I just sort of think, yeah, well, you know, bro, we all do. Like anyone who's ever role-played, written novels or anything else, we've all got notebooks or computer files or folders full of porn that we pretend is research material. We've all got stuff that is fueling a whole secondary world that we want to take our stories from. Now, see, another really smart thing Preston's done that shows you what a good operator he is, and this is something everybody should learn from, this Gail Simone horse shit. Just forget that. She conned her way in, she can con her way out. Fuck it. Preston has picked small, well-bounded targets. The world that he enters for each story, White Lily and Guinevere in the Divinity Factory. Guinevere might get away from him, but I doubt it. They're small enough targets that you can properly defend the premise and you can explore the world, and that's it. White Lily doesn't have to meet Winston Churchill or Stalin when she didn't in real life. She doesn't have to have a supernatural escape from death. And Guinevere in the Divinity Factory, there's some cosmic level stuff, as we were spoiled about originally, but it just keeps sticking to the personal story of an individual broken woman who had an intervention by a mage, and it's just followed on from that. And so it doesn't have to have this neat syllogistic, and then she finds the people who raped her and then she kills them with magic, and then, and then she finds out that revenge isn't the answer. And in some ways, some of the Guinevere stuff, it really is just a bunch of stuff that happened. Even her encounter with the android is random in a sense. It's not like it's all fated like in the Lord of the Rings or something. So I think that's really good.
but it's continuing on from events that continuing on from events too. And yeah, the meeting Winston Churchill also, that's a very Hollywood thing usually. That's like, oh, we got to have this part where they do this thing. It's like, well, that never happened in real life. It's like, so what? And, you know, there could be like speculation in adding some elements, some fictionalized elements into a real life story. You know, there's that. But when people like jump the shark, like in Hollywood, they tend to really jump the shark with that kind of thing. So there's always a balance, of course. And as far as like the scale of stories or the length of stories, especially, that was one thing that really kind of struck me and stayed with me for some reason. Like the one time I went to the literature board on 4chan, and people were saying, like the meme there was, you shouldn't even be writing a novel. You should be writing short stories because those are the most patrician. Those are the best. What are you doing if you're not doing short stories? The short stories are for the best writers. You're only a good writer if you write short stories. And it was like almost obnoxious to the point of being some kind of in joke. But it also made me think of it being kind of a good point, that if you know how to scale a story so it's told in like one chapter, or I see a lot of writers challenges and stuff. It's like, write a story in like 6 words, something like that. And I always thought that was really interesting. And even if you can't do it or haven't tried it, just having that in mind as a possibility of something a writer can do should be always on a writer's mind, or at least in the back of your mind, that you can always tell a story in only a few words, an entire full-on story. Sometimes maybe a 1 sentence, maybe 1 paragraph, maybe half a sentence, whatever it is. There's always the shortest way to tell the story, and I think in a way that can be more of an advanced skill when it comes to writing. And that's why it's good to try to, like White Lily right up there says, like issue 3 of 6 or 5?
5,
yeah, five issues. That's it, and it's a complete story in 5 issues. And you know, if you can do it in 1 issue, a one shot is nice. 5-issue series is nice, because it's not going to tell you, hey, that's going to be a huge epic that you're going to have to drag yourself continuing to read. It's like, it'll be this long and it's over. And that's so much better for a reader to sort of pull in their interest, and I think that's great.
Yeah. And I also think that you know, like limiting the story to a definitive number of issues, you know, kind of novel-like. You know, like, okay, here's the story in this novel, and I'm going to put it out or whatever. I think part of the problem with American comic model is that they have this serial, you know, approach.
Yes.
It's one of an infinite number, and then I think people just task themselves with the idea of, and what do I need to crank out to fill up another issue to, you know,
Yeah, they're not even they're not meant to tell a complete story. They're meant to be continuous.
Right. And you know, I think that might be why, you know, the Japanese manga should be winning that war, is because I think manga are telling more discrete, you know, finished stories as opposed to,
even their long ones are complete stories. They're enclosed, they're complete, and they have an ending. They either have an ending in mind or they have an actual ending, like you know, Fist of the North Star, or even Naruto went on for I know that's not how it's supposed to be pronounced, but that went on for volumes and volumes and then ended. And you know, what American comic can you point to, you know, by Marvel or DC that actually does that? Because all of them could. There could be a final Spider-Man story, but they'll never do that. The final Spider-Man story, for anyone who would be concerned, would probably be the last one that Steve Ditko worked on, and then that's it. But then, you know, why stop reading there when there's more?
And I think that the scarcity of time that we have in life is what provides some meaning for our days, and kind of gets us off our ass. And you know, you can imagine, like, if we were truly immortal creatures, we would just, it would be hard to motivate us to do anything. And I think if we approach our storytelling like that, of I've got forever to really tell this damn thing, for, you know, like, I think people waste too much time. makes.
Yeah, that seems to be how a lot of people are trying to, especially like these people who supposedly grew up reading American comics. They seem to think, "Oh, I'm looking to make my comic that will be made for 70 years after my death or something." And
Right.
it's like, then you're not really looking to actually tell a story. You're looking to create a brand. You're looking to make a logo that you can cash in on forever or something,
Right.
which you usually won't, because even those guys, they had that stole right from out from under them, and a lot of them died broke, or working until their last day.
So what's the point?
Mhm. There ain't no point to that crap.
So do we want to take a look at yesterday's kids?
Mhm. Or the Yesterday Kids. Yeah.
The-
Yeah,
yes.
yesterday kids.
All right. At page 10 of the script.
Page 11, right? Because we read, I think, up through 10 last time, didn't we?
Yeah.
7,
Yeah.
8,
Okay.
9.
Tony, you want to assign us any parts?
Sure.
It sounds like someone's vacuuming. I don't know why. But...
Who is vacuuming?
That's me. That's the Roomba.
Okay.
No,
I was right. Someone's vacuuming.
Are
Okay.
Roombas really loud, or is it just being picked up by the mic really loud?
I'm afraid it's both.
Okay.
So I think I'll be the narrator unless Preston wants to insist on it. See, Shane, Thomas, you can be Shane. See, Preston, you can be Tycho. Zombie, you want to be Foul. Rhea, let's see. Thomas, you want to be Rhea.
Okay. I'm Shane and Rhea.
Shane and Rhea.
Is it? Where's the? Is this the next part, or is this a revise of the previous one?
This is the next part.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just page 11 from the after the 10 pages from last time.
Preston, you can be Galley. And that just leaves Hunter, who has one line. So, Zombie, you can be Hunter.
Okay.
The room is getting closer.
I think that's everyone.
So I am Tycho, and who else? Tycho and
Galley.
Galley. Okay. and you want to be the narrator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shane. Okay. Shane. Panel 1. Shane and his friends back up, bunching together as the rival gang moves in and surrounds them.
So what were we saying?
So I'm just trying to bring up the right page.
Page 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
Page 11, opening Shane and his friends back up.
Got it.
Okay, want me to continue then?
Yeah.
Okay. Back the hell off.
Don't be hasty, kid. Just give us what we want, and we won't have to hurt you.
The kids bunch up closer together, shoulder to shoulder, with their backs against the wall.
Who's Foul?
Zombie, you want to be Foul?
Think we can take him?
Hell no, these guys didn't even offer to parlay. They'll probably kill us if we fight back. They're just strong-arming us. I bet they're not as tough as they look. If we can get a good hit on one of them, we can break their formation and run off with the goods.
Shane goes wide-eyed as a gun is put up to his head.
I'm Galley.
Yep,
All right, enough of this.
The female marauder stands over him, a wide, toothy grin visible under her visor.
Last chance to hand over the stuff. Cutie, what's it gonna be?
Shane stares at her, still wide-eyed and in shock. He smiles.
Nah.
Page 12, panel 1. Shane smacks the gun out of Galley's hand. Panel 2. Rhea quick draws her stun pistol, firing it wildly. Panel 3. Tycho runs from Rhea's barrage of shock bullets. Panel 4. Shane gives Galley a roundhouse kick, looking back at Foul.
Foul, cover the right.
Foul powers on his gloves, grinning.
On it.
Page 13. Foul leaps at Hunter, the third marauder, who fires his stun gun, missing Foul as he comes down to attack. Foul swings a punch, his fist leaving a blue trail of light, Hunter dodging. Hunter knees Foul in the gut. Shane swings a flurry of punches at Galley, who blocks all of them.
Oh, think you know how to play rough?
Galley jabs Shane in the chest 3 times. Close up of Shane, the wind knocked out of him. Page 14. Rhea fires her stun gun furiously, yelling over her shoulder.
Shane, we gotta get out of here.
Panel 2. Rhea's eyes glass over as she is hit in the head by a heavy stun bolt, staggering her. Shane tumbles to the ground. He props himself up, one eye open and scowling. Tycho steps over Rhea as she convulses on the ground. Hunter hauls over Fowl by the neck of his shirt.
Warned you.
Page 15. Shane springs to his feet, rearing back a fist. Tycho puts his hand to Shane's throat, stopping him. Fowl looks on in horror as Hunter restrains him.
Shane!
Tycho lifts Shane off the ground by his throat. He lowers his bandana.
You know, I don't kill children.
Shane turns red, eyes watering and hands clawing at Tycho's arm as Tycho squeezes harder.
But if you're gonna come at me like a man...
Page 16. Tycho lifts his goggles, showing his red cybernetic eyes.
Then maybe I should give you what you deserve.
Shane reaches for Tycho's neck, an inch away from him. Shane grabs hold of Tycho's bandana. Page 17. Tycho is hit in the back of the head by a stun bullet, letting go of Shane, who yanks the bandana off of him as he breaks away. Galley is hit in the chest with another stun bullet. Hunter is hit with a third stun bullet, freeing Fowl from his grip. Fowl and Shane rush over to Rhea, helping her up. Shane looks out with a bruised and relieved smile.
There's Donnie.
All right, guys.
Page 18. Donnie, a 17-year-old carrying a heavy stun rifle, marches forward.
Leave this one to me.
Tycho extends a blade from his wrist. He attacks Donnie, who clashes it with his sword mid-unsheathing. Donnie clocks Tycho in the head with the sheath of his sword. Donnie throws his sword out of its sheath across the room. It slices through Hunter's stun pistol right as he attempts to aim it, his eyes open wide. Donnie punches Tycho to the ground in the background, while in the foreground, Galley staggers to her feet. Page 19. Shane calls out as he and his friends watch the fight.
Donnie, look out.
Galley hurls a throwing star. Donnie catches the star between his fingers. He smirks. A wire shoots from his wrist. The tip lands on Galley's forehead. She looks up at it, cross-eyed. A massive shock is sent through the wire, electrocuting Galley.
God damn it.
Galley falls down, steam trailing from her body. Donnie stands tall, Tycho and Galley laying on the ground either side of him. Hunter reaches for Donnie's sword embedded in the wall next to him. Rhea tackles him.
Yeah.
Rhea, foaming at the mouth, gets on top of Hunter, punching him repeatedly in the face. Shane and Fowl look over.
Yeah, you like that? Eat shit, you fuck.
Truce! Shane pulls Donnie's sword out of the wall, inspecting it.
Hey,
Donnie comes over to Shane, holding the flash drive box up to him.
trade ya.
Shane smiles. The kids gather around Donnie while the Marauders regroup and lurk away.
That was a close call, even for you guys.
I'm Shane, right?
Yeah.
We should have gotten, we've gotten out of worse, but thanks for showing up. If it weren't for you, they could have, well.
Donnie sheathes his sword, smirking.
Nah, they wouldn't have killed you. Marauders have more sense than that. More than anything, they try to scare away the weak ones, yeah.
Shane frowns, looking down at his feet. He is still clutching Tycho's bandana. That's 10 pages?
Yeah, that was 10 pages, yeah.
I didn't even notice.
21. Yep.
Blaze.
Flew by in a big blaze of action. Okay.
Awesome to the max.
Yeah, I liked it. The action, not only swift in, as it would be in the actual comic, but in the descriptions here, it's just like one sentence, you get the point. And I like how in the script, it's not too descriptive or trying to be too descriptive, whereas some writers I'm the writer, so I need to get all the description I possibly can. This shows right here, you can really get all the direction you need from just short, punchy sentences. I usually ramble on and try to be like, they're thinking this, but even though it's nothing that'll show up in the comic. Sometimes they'll like say what I think the artist should know about the character, but this just gets right to the point and says, here's what's happening.
It really does. I don't know, Tony, how you got this skill, whether this is from training or practice, but you've got a real gift for this kind of writing. So,
yeah, I think that I actually got advice from one of my friends who does screenplays, and he looks at it like a director would, where you don't want to give too many like facial expressions, I guess, for the actors. But in this, like, the reason I don't give too many details is because I plan on doing the drawings, or most of them, I guess.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, it is very much like Screen, and it really, really works. Like, it's a real skill. It's not luck. That's you've drawn such clear characters, and then the action is still so clear as well. I hope you never lose that.
Oh, yeah.
Can you sustain this for an entire book? Is the whole book like this? Can you sustain it for the whole book, or have you run out of ideas and you have to think of more, or what?
I definitely have more ideas. There's definitely more set piece ideas, I guess. Not gonna spoil it all at once, but there's definitely an escalation.
There's a lot of energy. I just hate to see the energy peter out, and I hope it doesn't. I hope it stays like this.
Sometimes that can happen. Is you got like your idea for the big fight, and then after that, it's like, well, I can't do just another big fight, but also like what's supposed to happen. But that depends. It's nice, and it kind of it does definitely reminds me of more of a movie screenplay where it's meant to give space to actors or for things to develop as it's being made.
See, that'd work if you draw your own script, but if he had to give it to another person to draw, I just wonder if it would survive the process in one piece. That would be my only concern.
Well, I think the scene certainly would, but at the same time, when it comes to like, if you have an idea for an expression and you don't write it down because it's in your head and you're planning to draw it, that can work. But it can also, like, sometimes, at least in my case, I always worry that I'm going to forget how I want this character to look like they're reacting. So I always got to write that down. But it really depends on the individual writer's process and how they're going to actually make it work.
Right.
So, and that's one thing I can't dictate to another writer. Like the same way you can't dictate to another writer why they want to write stories. You can't. That's for them to figure out, or that's for them to already know. So. As far as the process, like even the format of the script is different from any format of a script I've seen, but it's clearly works and functions as far as delineating the dialogue from the descriptions into columns, and keeps things nice and clean too.
I want to go ahead and ditto the comments that certainly a lot of action, short, choppy lines, and the pages, moved along. So that's good. Constructives. Who wants to start that?
The shuriken catching, throwing star catching, is the only thing I have any concerns over. So, is this guy Captain America borderline superhuman, or is that just like a movie moment?
Well, there are some, I guess, superhuman elements in this comic, and I guess that he is like one of the big themes of, I guess, one of the big I don't know if you'd call it set pieces or like things in this universe is nanotechnology. Everybody has like some form of nanotechnology in them or whatever. I mean, as for what like Donnie is right now, he's not like, he hasn't like actively enhanced himself, but he's, there are people who do that, but him in this particular situation, he's definitely like has the skills to do that, I guess. I don't know, like this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with like long sweeping sagas, and then like I want to like keep it as vague as possible for right now.
Okay.
You're saying there's like backstory to this character that shows that he's probably a more competent fighter because he shows up and saves everyone, and it looks like he's saving them by just being better at fighting in general.
Yeah, that may be the case. Maybe they're letting him win. Maybe they're testing them. We don't know right now.
So there's
but catching the throwing star isn't letting them win. That's a definite borderline superhuman skill.
So yeah, if I was going to go that angle, I would rethink that.
Because the other thing is, if he just gets hit by it or grazed, and then there's the Bruce Lee cut on the cheek with the blood running down, that makes him tough rather than improbably heroic. That's all.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know what you're going for yet. And I'm interested either way, because if he's the guy with the perfect white teeth that sparkle every time he smiles in a world that's sort of collapsed and ruined, well, that's cool too, and it's very 80s. Did you have a chance to look at Cherry 2000, or the film that the lady...
I watched the trailer.
It's like watching a movie.
I want to get around to that soon. And the other one about the young adults that you posted.
Yeah, a couple of interesting films. I'm not telling you to copy them, but there's elements of what you've written which is fantastic already, which could be informed by actually not slavishly, borrowing, but just having a look at them.
Being familiar, having some familiarity with that's always good.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly, it's still a different take, because it's not just Mad Max where it's like, oh, that's everything rotted. It's like, oh, we rebuilt some stuff, and now we're scavenging some extra bonus materials.
So,
and you just know that's what will happen. There's unless it's a literal mass extinction and the whole species disappears, then of course, things will be rebuilt. Kids will still be kids. People will just be completely callous and disregarding of the past the way most people always are. So, yeah.
all right. For me, I'm assuming this is issue 1.
Yes.
So this is our first exposure to violent conflict in your world. And from this fight, we will develop the expectations for basically how all violent conflicts will be resolved.
Oh, this one seems like it would be a little different, because they're using stun rounds, and it's like, oh, it's because they're kids or something.
Yeah.
So like I feel like the combat is kind of non-lethal, because people were engaging with each other, and they came out relatively unscathed. I felt like the good guys were simply more effective than the bad guys, kind of thing. Despite the fact that I feel like the bad guys kind of got the drop on them, right? Like the good guys were there in the prior pages with the box that they opened, and oh, hey, look at that. We got the data drives. And, like going back to the prior 10 pages, I really don't feel like the good guys, let's call them the good guys, had necessarily a real specific plan, or had really thought through all the contingencies of the dangerous situation in which they were placing themselves. And now that the bad thing has happened, well, it's kind of okay, really. Like it's not that big a deal. They were able to fight their way out of it. Not that much worse for the wear. So what does it matter? And so you have created an expectation, either consciously or unconsciously, that the it's okay if the heroes just kind of blunder their way through, because they are just that much better than the opposition they're going to run into. So again, to me, like, you're kind of establishing that the stakes are, even in a fight, like, well, the good guys are still gonna win. It's like, look, if Luke Skywalker is attacked by a platoon of stormtroopers, you don't even need to, you could just flip to the next page and just show Luke Skywalker walking off with like a bunch of dead stormtroopers, because you already know how that's gonna go. So it's you're creating kind of an expectation of, I feel like, kind of an ineffectual opposition to the good guys. That again, I would want to see the stakes building up a little bit here, and I would like to see something more happen to the good guy. And the good guys seem kind of smug, like they seem a little bit self-confident, like they're getting off some quips. I don't really see a lot of them acknowledging that the bad guys kind of got the drop on them. And
first of all, like they're teenagers, so
Yeah.
like obviously they're not going to, like, they think they're going to live forever. And the other thing is that, like, the only reason they survived is because, you know, the older
They're
kid shows
rescued.
up.
Yeah,
They're rescued.
Okay, but
And also the counterpoint that Star
I'm
Wars
not saying that's
analogy.
wrong, though, necessarily.
Yeah. So like a counterpoint for that Star Wars thing. Luke, I remember first thing you'd say with the first time Luke fights, he gets ambushed by a stormtrooper and he gets saved. Or he gets ambushed by the sand person, whatever.
Yes.
Can I say that on YouTube?
Sandpert, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But well, sure. I mean, I'm just saying. And I don't want to
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm just saying, like
The good guys, you want to know that the good guys are either they're either fully competent or that they can be at risk. And it's like in a fight where they sort of if they're losing, they're only barely losing. It's like it would communicate that they're not really at risk or not at tremendous risk. But I mean, I think there's still some element of communicating that. But there's also communicating to the audience not to expect too much of them to be like seriously like maimed or wounded or debilitated.
I mean, I feel like
they'll be
it's kind of
consistent
like
with the whole story.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the A-Team, right? You remember the A-Team?
Yeah, there's an element of that.
Yeah,
or a lot of those 1980s films. Most of the violence in Cherry 2000 had no real payoff, and occasionally it did, and somebody actually stayed dead. But surprisingly few people ever died in those 1980s apocalypse films. Most of them,
right?
People just sort of had Three Stooges fights in the Israeli desert or California wilderness, and then maybe the big bad guy got blown apart or had a television drop on his head. But the rest of the people, a lot of them came through in unlikely ways. And if that's the vibe this is going for, all well and good. Of course, the other thing is to subvert it and have this
I was thinking there's always the potential for that
hero, the leader of the Marauders. It turns out he's working with the Marauders and the whole thing was fake, which is the other thing that crossed my mind. His immediate Deus Ex Machina could have been part of a prearranged plan to get this particular MacGuffin out of the ruins to somewhere else. That's all a bit like the original Marvel 2099 Alchemax plot, but that's okay. That's not a bad thing. If that's the case, that's not a bad thing. It's interesting. This is one I would like to read. This is one that I actually think, and that's true of most of the ones we've gone through so far. They actually interest me enough to read, as long as they're not like $48 or something.
Yeah, and the other my other question would be, I feel like the fighting was 8 to 9 pages of the 10 we read. I want to say was like conflict.
It was most of it, yeah.
Yeah, it was most of it. And I want to say, well, do you think you could have done that in 4 or 5? Like, I felt like some of those pages may have been a little bit like combat, like actions for action's sake, kind of thing. So,
yeah, I feel like I could shorten it.
Yeah, I felt like I feel like you could shorten it.
Possibly by a couple pages, anyways, because you could cut out a couple of sort of returns or rebukes in a way. But I mean, again, that's up to you if you want to have a comic that has just a big brawl in it. Wasn't there How to Eat Fried Worms for like 10 pages? It just turns into the kids beating each other up or something, swearing at each other. And when I read that, or when the teacher read that in school, they had to just black out like half the words because they all. I don't know what they were saying to each other, but it was something that some teacher at the library had to black out. But I was also thinking, though, that the potential for like really serious consequences happening in the future that we don't know about or expecting could very easily happen. So you never know if we're seeing like, oh, it's like some adventure stuff where they're stunning each other, but it's like 2 or 3 chapters down the road, one of them just kills the other, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. And that's to, if that's happening, to sort of play with the audience, to all of a sudden the stakes are really are really stepped up in the future that can actually work very well to the in the story's favor. But it depends. It depends on how it plays out, or if it needs to play out that way. Because as Zombie was saying, you could just go for a tone of something more generally lighthearted throughout, so you don't have to play it that way.
Well, it's funny. It's funny to call it light-hearted, but that is correct, and that's why I harped on Cherry 2000. And there's other films like it as well, where the world is actually a very disturbing world, and some of the situations in it are actually very sort of either sick or disturbing. But it's just not handled that way. It's handled with a light touch, and so you can watch it and enjoy it as more of a typical, I don't know, popcorn movie of the old sort. And this comic very much has that sort of vibe, that it could be a romp, so that even when really quite nasty things happen, you can get away with doing it because you've got the light touch.
And I was also thinking, though, that if you go for that just for all of a sudden something really legitimately grim to sort of signal to the audience, they didn't take the whole thing seriously until all of a sudden this happens, and it's really depressing to show sort of a moving on from childhood to a sort of not exactly adulthood specifically, but in a coming of age sense, where it's like we thought it was all fun until somebody got their throat cut.
The loss of innocence thing.
Yeah, that's a potential, or it's a potential to be used and exploited in the story, or it's a potential to be ignored actually, and to just go with something that stays fun.
It's got a nice Peter and the Wolf kind of vibe, though. Like they may be playing with situations that are going to get away from them.
Yeah, and that can be fragile too, because again, once you break that, it's broken forever. You can't really go back.
No. So if you're going to blow your wad, you need to blow your wad for the maximum effect, and not just I kind of got bored writing that, so she got ripped in half. So
which happens. That does happen to some writers who are like, okay, everything's too fun. Now I'm going to actually add stakes, and I mean that's why I always thought was wrong with the comic for One Punch Man, was at some point it stops being One Punch Man and starts being about completely unrelated characters, and it's not funny anymore. There's no jokes anymore. It's just
that's right.
That's always a risk, that you take your setting too seriously all of a sudden, and it stops being fun.
See, this isn't if you had to describe it in a positive, negative way, I would say this is the absolute masterclass in a not lazy storytelling comic. This one is not lazy. It's not the Lone Star, etc. And he jumps off a roof, and then he's like smashing these people to pieces because he's a homicidal maniac. But he's a hero, so he gets to
come back to
anyway.
The apartment.
And then this other bunch of bullshit happened, and then you know what's coming next, and that's all. And there you go. But it's well drawn.
If I may take the counterpoint on this one a little bit.
Counterpoint.
So we have 20 pages so far, which is almost a comic book. Like, most comic books are going to end up being like 23 interior pages. So if I'm reading issue 1 and I'm describing it to my friends, I'm like, okay, so a bunch of teenagers decide they want to be marauders. They go into a place, they get jumped, they have a fight, and then they decide, let's go somewhere else. And that was the first issue. I don't feel like that's enough story.
But it's got 2 pages left for the silhouetted figure of the sinister mastermind to appear.
Yeah, that's also the risk of action. That's the risk of action in general, is the more action you have, the less actual story there is.
So I felt like you if you would condense it, I feel like you could cut out 10 pages. I feel like the open of the guys going, hey, let's become marauders could be cut down a bit. We seem to have lost Zombie.
Yeah.
Therefore, I lost the counterpoint to what I was going to say. Oh, well, I have no one to argue with me. Darn. But I feel like the comic would be better and more compelling if you if you could cut down 3 or 4 pages out of that fight scene.
Yeah, 3 pages. I think that could be easily cut down, maybe, or at least 2.
Yeah. If you shave 2 pages out of the first 10, out of them coming into this place, and 2 pages out of that fight scene, you've got 6 or 7 pages, which you can use to set up some pretty cool stuff that really transitions us and will compel us to want to see what happens in issue 2, which right now I feel like if I pick up issue 2, it's going to be rather similar to what I just read, which is, and then they go to another place, and then there's going to be another fight. And maybe that's not true, but that's the expectation these pages have created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said before, the second issue is actually a lot more boring than what you just described.
Oh,
so that's why I've been going back and fixing that.
But also, if it's different, then it's, in a way, it might be a good thing to know that's going to be different up front. Because if you're going into issue 2 expecting more fighting, or go to a place, fight, and go to a place, and then it's not that, it's better to at least have an inkling of that ahead of time.
And why do you need issue 2 at all? You keep saying it's boring. Well, if it's boring, why do you need it at all?
Exactly. It's I could probably set up like the actual story in like 2 pages rather than a second issue.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
yeah. If you can do that,
and wouldn't that be cool if you could again shave off a few pages and take and condense issue 2 and put it in there? And if you could combine issue 1 and 2 and make it into just a really tight 23 pages, I think you'd have something. So that's what I would challenge you to do.
Yeah, I could definitely do that.
That's some of the actual workiest part of working on writing, is learning how to cut every single last thing you've ever had into your head down into like one panel.
Yeah.
Condensing, I think, is actually the hardest part of writing, harder than proofing and the revisions and all that stuff. The hardest part of revisions is the condensing and making sure everything's being told as economically as possible, because the economy of storytelling is possibly the most overlooked and most important aspect of it, is how much of your audience's time are you using and using well.
Yeah, part of my problem is that I have been writing this for like more than 2 years by now, so I'm so familiar with these characters that I'm like, but I don't get to get 5 pages to show like the character's subtle nuances, and it's like, no, you gotta kill that shit. I know that the editor in me is like, no, fuck you, you gotta cut that shit, please. But the artist.
There's also the potential to show those aspects later in later situations too.
Yeah,
I think it will come through as well. If you've got well fleshed out characters that are well rehearsed in your mind.
Yeah, I think some of that's already coming through. Just if you make the fight shorter, you still get
because you know how they're going to react in each situation.
Mm-hmm.
Then that consistency itself is what's telling people about their characters. And you certainly don't want to do the Richard C. Meyer level. You're upset because you have PTSD, fellow veteran, or whatever the fuck we're meant to be. And that's why you're so on the edge in a city that has gone mad, I can tell you. Your stuff doesn't need that at all. It just comes shining through who's who and what's what.
Oh, yeah.
There's even a mild sexual tension, which there's no real great sign of it. There's a silly, immature stuff about boobs, which is rings very true. But under that, there is definitely a relationship tension there as well. It's good.
In that, that manga sense where it's the boy likes the girl. That's kind of all you need sometimes.
It is. It really is. It is. But yeah, maybe Preston's got a great point about the compressing the action.
Mm-hmm. Because if you could condense chapter 2 into a couple pages and fit that into chapter 1, you've now successfully told so much more story in just one complete full issue, that theoretically someone could get like the overall feeling of reading the whole story just from your first issue. And that's almost the goal, is your first issue should almost be its whole complete full story, that nobody ever has to read any follow-ups or continuing issues to really get the point. You want them to still read the following issues, but if they only read the first one, that's kind of a good that's a good skill for a writer to just have, at least. And then teasing a reader to wanting to read more is another good skill. And if they're all like separate skills that sort of need to be to be worked on sometimes or experimented with, I think.
I have a page from White Lily issue 5 if anybody wants to see it.
Okay.
A whole page. You mean like the art for it?
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
I've been pretty all right. So it like yeah. All right. Here, I'll just show you. Application window. There it
Through the
is.
magic of screen share.
Through the magic of screen share. So here we go. So this is Katya. She is Lilia is missing. She doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know where she is, and she is really shaken up about it. As you can imagine, if you've been following the story at all, you know that Katya is Lily is everything to Katya, and so Katya has been sent home, and and here she is with her mom, and I'm pretty proud of this moment because I use a lot of mythology in the story, and there's a Russian tale. It's kind of a variation on Icarus and the Sun, not the Indiegogo project, but the actual Greek story, where Icarus crafts wings in order to rescue his son. His son is in his offspring. Or no, he's flying with his son. Yeah, because they have to get across this river or something. But I believe the son ends up, and it's about youth and stuff. And the kid's like, "Well, I can fly." So he goes too close to the sun,
flying too high.
Yeah, flies too high. Yeah, and then the sun melts his wings, and he falls to earth, and it is the tragedy of Icarus. But in the Russian story. And again, I think this may have certainly been shaped by the Soviets. They tell the parable about the bird who flew too far away from the flock, the bird who flew too high, which is kind of a bit like the Japanese parable, I guess, of the nail that stands up must be hammered down. But in this Russian parable, the bird who flew too high got his wings burned by the sun and then fell to earth, and but here, Katya is at home with the mom, and the mom is serving coffee. And because of where Katya has been off at war, this is like the first time she has had coffee since issue 1. And so we have this flashback here to issue 1, where Lilia is giving her this coffee thermos, and there's a line from issue 1, if you've read it, where the line that Lily is saying is, "I can't be a bird with this weighing me down." And then Katya is reflecting now on this parable, and she's like, hurt. And this is now a moment of revelation for her that was Lily's entire life, that she decided that she was going to lead the flock and to be her own figure, and that she knew that she was going to get burned, and that she knew she was going to fall. But that was a decision she made from the very beginning.
Intentionally deciding to take that risk and be like, I could be like Icarus, and I'm going to choose to be like that. It's almost tragic.
I get a little bit clipped.
But
anyway, that's that page.
And this, your final issue of White Lily almost finished.
Yeah, it's. I signed a contract and sent it off to get that distributed, and I sent an email to the distributor, and I'm like, you know what? Issue 5, the final issue, ended up being like a massive 37 pages, and issue 4 ended up being 26. So if you guys want, you can actually make a 6th issue out of this. So when it comes out in comic book stores, White Lily may be a 6-issue story instead of 5.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's a great story, though. Your version of it and the original. You've done the original justice, that's for sure, as far as I've seen anyway, so far. And that's no small thing to do. It's no small thing to do at all. It's one thing just to pull a historical figure and make a fucking cartoon out of them like they normally do. Like there's some silly, almost parody level nonsense. But to actually do justice to a World War II fighter That actually is a skill. That's a real skill. I just hope Model 316 does you a collectible of it, because is it a Yakovlev
Yeah,
8 that she flies, or
one. Yeah, one.
oh, Yakovlev 1,
Yeah.
of course. Because I mean, imagine that as a collectible.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
And you guys saw the hermit that I posted to Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw that.
Oh, here. Yeah. Here it is. I'll show you.
I want to check it out.
So again, I've been putting tarot card references in my work.
Oh yeah.
I like them. So this is the image of Katya returning home. Just kind
with
of
the thermos.
Yeah, with the thermos, exactly. She's got the lantern and the thermos, but this is a reference to the tarot card, the Hermit.
The hermit, because of the cloaked.
Yeah, the cloaked figure, and we can feel the isolation
Mm.
and the coldness.
Yeah, that does
Was she Jewish in real life? I thought she wasn't she?
Lydia Lipiak?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, the classical hermit has the 6-pointed star inside the lantern.
Oh. Well, this is Katya as opposed to Lilia, so...
Yeah.
And Katya was not.
So just a hammer and sickle in the lantern, then, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. The lantern of communism. But yeah, I really like the way a lot of these images come out when because I write them in initially to go. I just want I eventually want to make a tarot deck, and I was talking with a marketing manager, and Jen, who was on last week, who works for the Dallas Film Festival and whatnot, and she was like, because the thing about, I don't know if you guys know about tarot decks, but there's like a whole story behind each card, and typically you're kind of interpreting your question about your life or whatever in terms of the context of the narrative the card itself has. And see, I want to do it so that if you get the Pocket Jacks tarot deck, you will see, oh, that's Leia in issue 5. She's returning home and she feels isolated. You will understand all the context around the character already. Just like we saw in the script, like the Ace of Wands is Eric, and he's about to put the hammer down on some people. So, and she's like, that creates a relationship between the person who's using the deck and all the different brands that you're going to be putting together. And she thought that was a really good idea. So my motivation for doing it was, just kind of pragmatic entrepreneurial marketing. But I ended up really liking the story elements. And that's something else that I didn't see in your pages, Tony, is like splash pages. And they can really carry a lot of weight.
Well, there is a splash page right at the end of the issue.
Okay, fair enough.
It's of them riding off into the sunset. One of those kinds of things.
Yeah. So anyway,
that can definitely work for the tone too, because if it's like, hey, we had a fun adventure today, that can be a nice ending to your first chapter.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention that I was doing a few shorts, gag-based comics recently, trying to get my feet wet.
Sure.
And those are on Webtoon. I can give you the link if you want.
Yeah.
Sure.
I always do try to encourage that for people who are like, hey, I want to write comics. And it's like, have you written comics before? And if the answer is no, I would say try to make little goofy gag comics, to just see what the taste is for actually putting an image into a panel, putting text onto it, seeing if you can make somebody laugh with it, something like that.
I would never tell people not to follow their dreams, but the old saying, in dreams begin responsibilities, is so true. And there's a hell of a lot of people, relatively speaking, who intend to write an entire comic series, who are yet, as far as I can see, to have written anything, even a 10-page short story or a 3-panel newspaper strip.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't even made a newspaper strip kind of comic, if you haven't made a 3 or 4 panel gag comic, if you haven't even made like a one panel comic, like some kind of old political cartoon goof for fun or something like that, or even a Photoshop or something with text on it at least.
Just something. And the same with a short story. It doesn't. It's not a sign of defeat. Like, how do you eat an elephant? One mouthful at a time. Like, not everyone is going to get hit by a bolt of lightning and turn into super writer. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So pick a target.
It's really a myth, if anything. It's never happened.
Not really. There's always a put-up job behind it when people claim it's happened. There's always more at work.
Yeah, there's an unseen element of how much work they've actually done before that. That's just never known.
Or it's a fix. They're somebody's child or wife or lover or something, and so suddenly they get propelled.
Yeah, but somebody else did the ghost writing or something. Yeah. And it's like, oh, this new hit writer, and it's like, it turns out their boyfriend did the writing or whatever.
Yeah.
And talking about comic series, like this one is definitely planned to be like a long one, which is why I've been like trying to get myself to put it on hold and do a shorter, like 6-issue series based on something else, which I can bring in the script for that next time if you want.
Sure.
That one's actually, I think that one is probably more up Preston's alley because it's like paranormal. The reason I was putting it on hold actually was because I thought it was too much like Hellboy. It's basically Hellboy if he was a furry, I guess, if we're going to like sum it up.
Isn't Hellboy a furry?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because he has a tail. I mean, that's almost close. One thing about like saying that you're going to do a long series is you can still try to approach that as you're telling it in short arcs. Like, say you think, okay, this can be a really long series. This could be 100 issues, but I'm going to just tell the first 3 issues of this story or the first 6 issues. That's my goal. That's what I'm shooting for. If I hit 6, if I actually make 6 issues of this comic, I can continue from there, but I'm aiming for 6. And I think that's a good way to try to look at a potentially long series. Like Walking Dead is separated into arcs and like trade paperback arcs that have, their own individual titles, but they're separated. And, a lot of comics that go on for a long time are told in story arcs. And I think
it sets yourself up for disaster if you think, like, okay, you've got the next Lord of the Rings in terms of length on your hands, but you've just got to get stuff out there. Take it from that world, tell it out of order, do something, but you have to just get stuff out there to break the ice, get your feet wet, and then maybe it'll be a long series, maybe it won't. I mean, I know from my Ashcan animations, which got distribution deals, minor ones, but they got distribution deals. Most of the ones that I'm happiest with, most people really hate, violently hate in some cases, and most of the ones that I thought were just pablum are the ones that people keep rewatching. So if I was going to have a long series come out of those Ashcans, it wouldn't have even been the thing that I thought was going to go forever because people just found it too alienating, and the stuff that I'm almost already bored with, but I could crank out forever, is what they would probably want to see like another 13 episodes of. So I think you're better off just trying to get an issue out and then an issue 2 and then an issue 3 and 4, like a lot of indie comics people do. And then maybe it'll run 200 issues, maybe it won't.
Right.
Yeah, if you try and think of it as like as immediate as possible, if instead of saying I'm going to tell this whole story, say I'm going to just tell this little piece of the story right now. Yeah. That will be my focus. Is right now this one immediate little piece of the story, and then from there it could continue. But I'm not going to, put all my work into. But at the same time, like if you come up with an idea for like chapter 20 or like the third arc of your story, you can always throw that into notes and be like, I'll think about that later.
Right.
Or just tell it out of order.
Yeah, if you want. But because I've had scripts that I'm working on scripts for whatever, for things I don't even intend to see the light of day. I mean, I would like to, but I never know. But it's like I'm on page 50 of the script, and it's like 2 arcs down the line, I come up with an idea, and it's like, let me go into my notes to write that down for 2 arcs down the line that I might never write. But I still want to know the thoughts I had, put that down. So I would always say, you want to focus on that immediate, but if you have ideas for the future too, you still want to make sure you can remember them just in case.
Yeah. It's all written down in the series Bible right now.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
All right. Cool. So who wants to present next week?
I'm not sure because I'm holding off just in case that I could. So
All right.
I always say next week I could do it, but if somebody else brings their script over, that's fine with me.
I still want to get the other people who joined the Discord to present, but it just seems some of them are very.
I think they joined
nervous.
and then they forgot they even had Discord or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think some of them it's probably. It's almost calling their bluff in some cases, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah, which is funny because Von Klaus, I really thought we were going to call his bluff, and then he showed up.
All right.
And good on him for doing it.
Well, Tony, it sounds like you have more story. Why don't you come back next week? We'll see what goes.
Oh, sure, yeah.
All right, cool.
As long as you find
if you actually do rewrite it, if you do some rewriting and stuff, you can come back and present the stuff you've rewritten.
That would be really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Preston's done that, and it's really quite remarkable to see.
Yeah,
really,
several times. Even tonight.
It's pretty staggering.
Yeah. Because they're
I
big,
mean, in a good way,
big
in a good way.
rewrites.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with this phrase, but writing is rewriting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
but it's nice to show it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it takes the fear away from people who try and self-censor and second-guess themselves so that they never finish a page.
Yeah,
I've just reread Albert Camus' The Plague, of course, and there's a character in that who has had a mental breakdown and not really processed it, and he's writing a novel. And when they find his personal effects after he succumbs to the plague, gets very ill, the doctor goes into his room and looks at his writing, his manuscript, because the man's so worried about it and wants it to be looked after. It's just the same sentence, slightly rewritten over 500 pages. He's only got once, and he's just kept on thinking of the perfect way to present it. You see, that's obviously Camus, the writer, parodying the process of rewriting to an absurd extent, and it becomes very. It's bathos, but it is also pathos. It's laughable, but it's very sad.
Yeah,
and I'm feeling sadness for a lot of these would-be comic book writers because. There's a kind of enthusiasm to do it, but at some point you just have to commit, and if it's not as good as you hope for, then you just hope the next one's better. You've got to have continuous improvement, but actually do something.
I think some people.
That reminds me of a story I heard about James Joyce, which is that it's just a story, but a friend came over or something, and James Joyce was just lying depressed on his desk, and the friend was like, "What's wrong, James? Is it the work?" It's like, "Yes, it's the work. It's always the work." And the guy's like, "Well, what's wrong?" He's like, "I've been writing all day, and I only wrote 5 words." And his friend's like, "Well, James, for you, that 5 words is pretty damn good." And he's like, "I can't decide what order they go in." Anyway,
that is right. That's ultimately writing. That's what writing is like every time.
I think people are self-victimizing by, and this is specific to comic books. I mean, last time I brought a comic book out, it's probably God Almighty. Apart from the film tie-in graphic novel, 8 years. Film graphic novel tie-in, I don't know, 5 years or 4 years. There's a generation of comic book consumers who have become so frustrated, like the original Comicsgate idea. They don't want this crap forced on them, so they're going to do their own. That's good. But then rather than being literate in comic book processes, even Silver Age ones like Lee Kirby stuff, they turn immediately, because this is how they've been conditioned and what they've absorbed, to television and film. So they're not really writing comic books. What they're actually writing is complex storyboards, and it is not the same thing. And that's why their comics are so flat and empty, is because they've got this a storyboard thumbnails, matchsticks, da 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 da. They're just shorthand, but they're trying to publish volumes of shorthand as a comic book. But even really, I mean, for heaven's sake, Archie Comics and Archie Comics TMNT and Sonic have more complexity and depth of character development than so-called mainstream cape shit does now. I mean,
it's sort of like if you wrote a novel just as notes.
Summaries. Like we're talking about this G.I. Joe syndrome. Like all of these friggin' characters are veterans and all of them don't wear bright, colourful costumes. And it's all the same. This is just like custard. It's just like bland custard. Because it's all self-conscious notes. It's like, well, I don't want you to laugh at me, so my character's not going to have a bright costume that you can make fun of. And he's not going to be heroic because you'll make fun of him being heroic.
You certainly don't want to make the next Red Rooster.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there isn't even a current Red Rooster. Well, there was like 10 years ago, but
Argo Comics, Red Rooster.
Yeah, Argo Comics, Red Rooster, there's that. What I was referring to was the derivative of that. Yes. Not even a derivative, the weird, just not even existing ripoff.
I just think a lot of those sort of comics, there was that splash page, and I think IndieCron and the rest of the cult pimps still use it or use similar images, where they've got all of the different characters, you know, and they're all together, you know, in like a sort of Comicsgate universe.
The big team up.
Yeah,
except you can go through
Mike S. Miller cover.
But you can do the Abraham Lincoln "How Few Remain" speech by just putting a kind of grey out over all the ones that don't exist, weren't published, no longer. I mean, there are actually fuck all of them. Yeah, there's fuck all of them that could even still assemble together, and the ones that are, there are very, very, very few that have a costume. Yeah. Now they were meant to be re-establishing what a lot of people like Thomas call cape shit. Mm-hmm. Which I would just call American superhero comics or American comics in general. Because unlike bande dessin, it is recognizable even in the Franco-Belgic comic book world and Italian comic book world. America is costume heroes in comics. That's its front and center. That's its meat and potatoes. So I don't know, if I was going to mount a counterculture insurgency or a reformation or anything, my revanchist comic would have to be a costume superhero with a logo on his or her chest. It would have to be. I mean, John De La Rose is the only one who's really doing it, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Because he's doing the Dynamite Thor thing.
And Blank Sparks. Yeah,
there you go.
Too.
Yeah. Now, to me, okay, you like it or you don't, you like him or you don't. Mm-hmm. That is nevertheless, isn't that how Comicsgate actually started?
Yeah, that's what they claimed they always wanted.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Not all these violent adolescent homoerotic fantasies about control and violence, not all these sort of strangely hostile subtext, crude stories, and all of these
like an appeal to authority. These people have authority, therefore they are better, and they're free to be sadists. Because the bad guy
and
is
the current wave of them, based on the art they've released. There's an awful lot of what. I mean, you could say this is me projecting, and maybe I am, but I doubt it very much. A lot of the imagery, even that NASA comic book with that other guy, a lot of them, they've got what looks like child molestation in it. It looks like it as drawn, like you've got little scared children and you've got a big figure looming over them. It looks like a Stranger Danger educational poster.
The secret comics thing that NASA's doing.
That one, that Through the Woods one, a lot of them do. What the fuck is up with that? No, I mean, really, what the hell? There
can be a lot of things about that. That can be an element of, like, the creator's a big creep. I think some other elements, maybe in Nasser. I can't speak for Nasser. I can't look into his soul. But in Nasser's case, it might be like the horror of danger when you're a helpless child or something. But the way it comes off too. See, that's one thing about second guessing yourself. Sometimes you should. Sometimes you should guess yourself, because you want to consider in your mind how this may look in a way that's not intended. And I'm not.
This is one of the things that makes it funny. like when you went through that fan fiction never-ending epic with Doug TenNapel that day, the Sonny, whatever the hell, Sonny Cheeks, whatever it is.
Tails gets trolled.
That's the one. And there's another one, that Sonny Cheeks one is the same. They are unintentionally funny because the people doing them are mad and don't understand that other people who are not mad don't see the world fundamentally the way they do. So you have this delicious and hilarious insanus on Nino insana est. The madman believes that everyone else is mad. And so it's like, well, what's wrong?
Too, of course.
What's wrong with zoophilia, corpse molesting? What's wrong with necrophiliac bestiality? I mean, you're saying it like that's something unusual. Like, what's unusual about dressing up like a cartoon animal in a fursuit and then not washing for 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
They try and. In fact, I don't think they even try. They don't realise how non-mainstream, not ready for prime time they are. Like the same with that weird argument about Englewood, the MMA fighter, and that's like my trademark idea thing.
Yeah.
It's so freaking generic. You couldn't even trademark it on that basis.
No.
Yeah. It's like if I tried to trademark the word literally, well, it's the name of my comic. I'm going to trademark it. Why? Why exactly? What? It's the word literally.
But that's an unusual use. You see, you have a distinctive link, a different kind of twist. Their stuff is very, very generic. And I've wondered lately, since the Liam Gray thing and the Xenotite, it all blew up because he punched on. But I've never really even looked at their stuff. It doesn't even interest me enough to even give it a fair shake. But I did. I looked through them all, and my God, it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, Oddity, Preston and I, again, point and counterpoint. Sure. We disagree on Oddity in some ways, but at least Oddity is distinctive. It's distinctive to an extent. It's its own thing. Fuck all of the others are, though. And I don't know what kind of scripts they're working from. I'd love to see their scripts. I mean, the Von Klaus script, as seen in the comic, as realised, that all makes sense to me. I mean, you like it or you don't, but that seemed to be professional and workmanlike.
It definitely worked. It functioned. It worked.
It nailed it. You like it or you don't, but I mean, it took off, flew and landed. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of this stuff doesn't even really have a story. Like, it's just kind of, they all start off on a roof, they fall, jump, or get knocked off, they land and perhaps break the pavement.
I've
all
seen
of them.
Five different Comicsgate comics that start with.
I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes more of Comicsgate pitching, then I'm going to go.
Okay, yeah. Okay. It's about 2 hours, so we should wrap up. Yeah. I do have to go.
No, but I mean, just in terms of the scripting, purely in terms of the scripting, I don't know whether they've got scripts in any conventional sense.
But even when they do have scripts, I don't think it doesn't seem to help. It didn't help Ironsides because there was a script, but so.
And this pandemic thing seems suspiciously clever, and I can think of a Spanish language film and a fairly old book, both of which have the same premise, and of course it's very mid-1970s paranoid thriller style too.
Yeah, would not be surprised for 1 second if it was just a fanfic version of some movie. I mean,
I happen to have written and published online for free a similar story many years ago, and if I find out that they borrowed from me, I will personally put them through the ringer. So, all the best, guys.
But I mean, most likely some other movie, like if you took No Country for Old Men and like gave it a lobotomy, you would have Iron Sights. And that's actually a better sum up. I wish I had put that into our review of that comic, but ultimately, we didn't point out it was just No Country for Old Men. It was just a dumb fanfic version of that, of the movie, though, not even the book, just the movie. Anyways, I think we covered a lot of good stuff.
I did. All right. Next week, Thomas will present more pages.
Yeah, so unless somebody else, again, you could check out the Discord server if you have a script.
There's a link to Discord. Yeah.
Anyone.
In fact, some of the people with work commitments, they'll be losing their work commitments soon. They will be available.
Awesome.
They should be. Yeah. Anyone.
It's not awesome that they're losing their job, but I mean, like they'll have time on their hands, won't they?
a mini vacation, I guess. But yeah, anyone who has any script writing, whatever, if they want to bring it in, and again, we cover it the way we cover it on this episode, where we just go over here's what we liked and here's what we think could be changed if you feel like it, whatever. It's a decent way to get feedback on writing, and a lot of people don't even know there's a way to get feedback on writing. It's this wonderful show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not sensibly. And the Gail Simone thing is much too patronising, in my opinion. She's not God or close to it. So, if she wants to rap with the fellow kids, she's going about it the wrong way, in my opinion.
Are you saying that our show is better than her? Whatever.
Yes, I am. I'm saying that our show is objectively better than hers because none of us are putting tickets on ourselves. So yeah, I am.
All right, I gotta get to work
next week. Wednesday evening. I'll see everybody then. Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.